He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is the Alex Marlow Show.
Welcome to another Hawaiian Shirt Friday episode of the Alex Marlow Show. Thanks to all of you sending me great emails. You guys write so beautifully. Aloha at alexmarlow.com for those, leaving comments, 5-star reviews, all that stuff, very helpful. Most importantly, telling 10,000 friends and family members about the new show, helping us get that momentum heading into the new year. We're doing something interesting for a podcast today. We're in a breaking news environment, which is one of the things that is either a blessing or a curse. I think more often it's a curse with the produced nature of podcasts. We try to do minimal production here. It's the, no offense to the wonderful folks at Salem. That's not the point. The point is we want to get it out the door as soon as we record it. But Speaker Johnson has been reelected as Speaker, so he's won the gavel. There were only a couple of defectors. Congressman Self and Norman dramatically reversed their votes. They thought they were going to withhold. And of course, Thomas Massie was never going to vote for Johnson. He said that you'd have to jam bamboo under his fingernails and then he still wouldn't vote for him. But that's where we're at. So we've got MAGA Mike in there, who you guys know that this was not my wishes. I don't think that he's been effective thus far, and I have very low expectations for him going forward. But he was the guy Donald Trump wanted, and that matters because people trust Trump, and for good reason. And Trump should be able to generally get the people that he wants. So my disappointment level is very mild. This is exactly how I would have predicted it. I would have been surprised if it went past one vote because there did not seem to be a major pushback against Johnson. There really did not seem to be a huge alternative that was presented. And because of that, there are very few defectors, and that makes it pretty easy for Trump and Trump's people to shore up the necessary votes to get Johnson across. There are reports that Marjorie Taylor Greene got a call from Susie Wiles, who's going to be Trump's chief of staff, lobbying her today. So, and just right after that she went and said she's out. She's gonna support Johnson, and that makes sense. Look, I get it. There's a reality of these things. There's a terrible job. I've always said this. Speaker of the House is one of the worst jobs, and it feels like a lot of people get it as a booby prize or because no one else really wants it. And so it'll be on us to keep an eye on Johnson. But Trump was obviously congratulatory. This is what he wanted. And hopefully it's not a be careful what you wish for type situation. But we're getting the breaking news right now that he will be reelected as Speaker. It's interesting to get some of the flavor in the room. We've got Bradley Jay, one of our reporters, in the room and sort of live blogging it at the front page of Breitbart News. And it's just a riot to catch up to this stuff. Like Johnson coming out, making acceptance speech. He says, we will defend our nation's borders. That's the number one priority. Good. I like that. Only a handful of Democrats clap for that. So we don't like a border defended if you're a Democrat. You said you would work with us on that, Hakeem, saying to Hakeem Jeffries, and Jeffries did not bat an eye at that. So we're having fun. We're already having fun in this Congress. Trump was very congratulatory, saying congratulations to Speaker Mike Johnson for receiving an unprecedented vote of confidence in Congress. I don't know if that's true. Mike will be a great speaker, and our country will be the beneficiary. The people of America have waited 4 years for common sense, strength, and leadership. They'll get it now, and America will be greater than ever before. I got to say, it's only fair if I say this. That's platitudes. It is. It's not just, look, I'm not credible if I only say Democrats do platitudes. Every side thinks they're the common sense side. So that's why I've never been pro using that as a talking point. You rarely see me talk about common sense. Not say I never do it. I talk a lot. But everyone thinks they're the common sense side. Everyone thinks they're the strong side. Everyone thinks they're the leadership side. So there's no real specifics here that make me particularly encouraged about Johnson. There were, I think it was up to 9 Republicans were either thinking of doing something symbolic, so where they would not support Johnson, and then everyone but Massie ended up coming around. It's funny how Massie is a grandstander, and I find that when I agree with him to be awesome, and when I disagree with him, I find it to be highly irritating and self-indulgent. But he said, I won't vote for Mike Johnson, even if you shove bamboo up my fingernails. It's interesting when people, these larger than life personalities, when they behave in that way. Trump was truth bombing yesterday that he's got a new quote out. He's saying Trump was right about everything. That's what he's doing. Trump was right about everything. That's his new line. And so when I'm in a good mood, I love when Trump talks that way. It's very fun. But he wasn't right about everything. I mean, like he should have done the border wall first before healthcare in 2017. That's a good one. I think he shouldn't have put Christopher Wray in charge of the FBI. So he wasn't right about everything. He was right about most stuff. So, but it's when you're in a good mood, you love the trolly nature of it. So anyway, best of luck, Speaker Johnson. Hope he does a great job for this country. Very tough job. And I don't know how it's going to go, but he's laid out his 3 principles, his 3 initiatives that he's going to be doing. And this was done before the vote today. I'm going to read these to you because we got to put a marker down here. Number 1, create a working group comprised of independent experts, not corrupted by lobbyists and special interests, to work with DOJ and our communities on implementing recommended government and spending reforms to protect the American taxpayer. Okay, so working with DOJ to cut, that's good. But, we can't just act like DOJ has never existed before. And we all are hot on Musk and Ramaswamy, but these guys were having a tough time this week. Musk was out there saying we should all F ourselves in the face if we don't like H-1Bs, which is just, I'm much closer to where Bannon's at, where Bannon thinks we should have reparations for H-1Bs and we should deport everyone who has one. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm much more open-minded to that perspective than F yourself in the face if you don't like H-1Bs. And so that's the guy who's in charge of DOJ. And the other one is Vivek, the guy who said one of the worst tweets of all time that I've been breaking down all week. So we can't guarantee that DOJ is going to work. It's a historic opportunity, but his priority number 1 is working with DOJ. He's the U.S. Congress. So I don't know. I won't say that's alarming. I will say that that's not great. So working with an entity that doesn't even exist yet by a couple of non-politicians. What can the U.S. government do? I've been taking notes on this. I mean, we should be funding the wall. We should be investigating J6 malfeasance, looking at everything that Adam Schiff did using his oversight powers. We should be investigating people for destroying evidence. We should be funding all the stuff that Trump wants to do. So that should be the top priorities. Budget accountability, how about that? Are we just going to have an infinite inflation for all of eternity? Anyway, I would put those a little bit higher. But anyway, let's go ahead. Number 2, task that working group with reviewing existing audits of federal agencies and entities created by Congress and issuing a report to my office for public release. So we're going to audit all the federal agencies. Good. Okay. I like that one. Number 3, request House committees undertake aggressive authorizations and appropriations reviews, including providing additional resources where needed to expose irresponsible or illegal practices and hold agencies, individuals accountable that have weaponized government against the American people. That just sounds like a number 2. So this sounds like the same one. We're going to be in for it, guys. I don't know if this is going to be good or bad, and I don't know how entertaining it's going to be. Hopefully it'll be good and entertaining and not bad and not entertaining. So, but Johnson's the guy. All right. So terror updates, not that many, believe it or not. And I've been thinking about this a lot. And I think the situation, particularly with the Tesla blowing up in front of the Trump hotel in Vegas, this is one where I'm really interested in the fact that this Green Beret just did not seem like a candidate to be a suicide bomber in front of a Trump building. So his politics are kind of a mystery. I mentioned yesterday on the show that his wife was some radical left winger, but that's actually his ex-wife. So it's a little more complicated than that. So first of all, wives and husbands don't always share politics. And second of all, certainly not with ex-wives. That's not a guarantee at all. So, and then there's this odd thing that he had a gunshot wound to the head before the Cybertruck detonated. So that means there's only a couple of ways it could have happened. It's either he shot himself in the head right before, which would be bizarre because if he's a suicide bomber, wouldn't he be making sure the mission got completed? Or did he shoot himself a long time ago and then he, for whatever reason, set the car to autopilot because it is a Tesla, and then you drive it to Trump Tower and then it blows up and then there's no one around. So there's no additional fatalities. I mean, the windows didn't even break of the Trump building. There's going to be really minimal damage. So I have no idea what message this was sent. There's lots of theorizing that he must have been some part of some sort of secret unit in the Green Beret that maybe got compromised somehow. I don't know the first thing about this stuff. I'm just telling you the wild stuff that's being sent to me, theorized. So it seems like our armed forces are pretty good at tracking at least when someone could be vulnerable towards a mental fatigue or mental illness. And all of this remains a huge mystery. But I'll tell you one thing that I will make a light correction on the show. I said flat out that this guy blew himself up. I don't know if that's true. I'm not dismissing that this is some sort of a murder and there's some sort of a cover-up going on. And I find it very bizarre and frankly, a day later, more inappropriate that the Tesla fanboys were out there acting like this was some sort of big victory for Tesla because the truck didn't blow up that much. It's just egregious. It's just a completely grotesque marketing that, yeah, the Tesla contained the blast. Fine. But why are we talking about the quality of the Cybertruck? Are we under attack? Is there weird conspiracies and murder going on within our Green Berets? I don't know. What's going on at Fort Bragg? I mean, it's a big place, but we've got 2 terrorist attacks from guys who are at Fort Bragg. We had one of the Trump assassins, the second guy, the one who tried to kill him at the golf course. He's a Fort Bragg guy. What's going on over there? There are a lot of questions to get answered, and it's not how great is the Cybertruck. I don't care, frankly. Strange stuff. And then you got, of course, our media is so irresponsible. One of the clips of the day that I saw was with Charles Blow, who writes for the New York Times primarily. And he suggested that this is, again, somehow tied to right-wing terrorism, which we discussed on yesterday's show, Ken Delanian over at NBC. So it's at NBC, that's their talking point, is somehow this is all right-wing terrorism. Let me play this. Here we go. This is on Joy Ann Reid's show, of course. Where else would it be? On MSNBC. Let's play Charles Blow, New York Times columnist.
Yeah. And last word to you on this, Charles, because this is the challenge, is it's very difficult to feel safe when on top of everything that Mayor Landrieu just said, you also have politicians that have a self-interest in lying about everything because it helps them with a political narrative, not concerned about the human narrative that could actually be really helpful.
And that is the tragedy of all of this, right? There are real tragedies. There will always be crime. Unfortunately, what we try to do is to keep the crime as low as possible. All different kinds of people will commit crimes. The problem here is that you jump on one sort of crime, one crime committed by one name that sounds exotic, one brown face, rather than looking at all of the domestic terror that we face, including what the FBI says, is a really big problem, which is young white men in America. We need to look at all of our domestic terrorism and say this all is a problem.
It's really about white men. White men are the big threat here. And the reason why we're talking about this is not because 15 odd people were murdered in cold blood while they were celebrating New Year's in the middle of an iconic American city, an iconic American street. We really should be talking about white terrorism. That's the stuff that goes on at MSNBC and NBC and at the New York Times. This is a New York Times, longtime New York Times columnist. And that's what they regard as a mainstream opinion over there. So Joy Reid lamenting the politicians that have a self-interest in lying about everything because it helps them. And then Charles Blow saying one crime committed by one name that sounds exotic, one brown face rather than what the FBI says is a really big problem, which is young white men. Do any of you think young white men are a bigger threat than radical Islamic terrorism? Is there one person in this audience? It's not my audience. I find this also interesting because there was, discussion after the terror attack, the Sugar Bowl, which was being played in New Orleans, which is a college football playoff event, and being played in New Orleans, the Allstate CEO came out and lamented division. I actually have this clip. Let me play this.
Welcome to the Allstate Sugar Bowl. Wednesday, tragedy struck the New Orleans community. Our prayers are with the victims and their families. We also need to be stronger together by overcoming an addiction to divisiveness and negativity. Join Allstate working in local communities.
You guys get that? That's what's caused the terror. It's our addiction to divisiveness and negativity. It's not radical Islamic extremism. It's not the balkanization of certain groups into their own radical neighborhoods, like we talked about on yesterday's show. Trump tied to immigration, and he's right. It was only me and Trump who did this. I tied to immigration. I said he doesn't have to be an immigrant. If we have an immigration system where people are coming into the country and they're not going to assimilate, they're not going to become part of the American experience. They're just going to take advantage of some aspects of our generally wonderful society. And they're going to isolate themselves into their own community so they can get radicalized and then they can kill Americans. No thanks. That's not a good immigration system. I'm all for immigrants. It's fine. I'm not a no immigration guy. I think we generally benefit if there are people who can bring elements of their cultures to America and make it a melting pot, but this is not a melting pot. This, again, the analogy I think is apt. It's my 1-year-old's segmented bowl where the fruit doesn't touch the ketchup, doesn't touch the pasta with butter and cheese. I mean, that's it. That's how we're living. We're segmenting the various elements of our meal. So we can't live that way. That's not how society is. That's not the point of our immigration system. We would have immigration if people can enhance, they add to the culture. Segregating and radicalizing people who are born in America is not an advantage. But this guy thinks that the problem, Tom Wilson, is our addiction to divisiveness. Very odd person. Very odd person. Why would you do this? Let's play this. Let's play a little bit more.
Stronger together by overcoming an addiction to divisiveness and negativity. Join Allstate working in local communities all across America to amplify the positive, increase trust, and accept people's imperfections and differences. Together, we win.
What a loser. What a loser. Detestable. It's interesting because I'm a very positive person in my personal life. And what makes me negative is it's funny. I say this sometimes that I play a realist in media. In media, I'm like, I like to warn people what I really think is going on, if it's good or bad. I like to kind of rein in some of the super negative types, and I like to rein in some of the positive types. But in my heart, I'm actually kind of an optimist. And I'm sure that this guy is thinking about people like me, people who are the hardcore OG MAGAs, editor of Breitbart. He probably thinks that I'm the problem because I'm too negative. No, my negativity is about liars who are misdiagnosing America's problems. Right? I mean, it's the wokeism, the refusing to enforce our own borders, the failure of law enforcement. January 20th is the day, and Washington, D.C. is the place. That's when and where Donald Trump will be inaugurated as the 47th president of the United States. He gets a whole new inauguration. It was already 45th. Now it'll be 47. And we want to send you there. You can win a once-in-a-lifetime VIP experience to attend the inauguration in Washington, D.C. It includes airfare for you and a guest to Washington, a 3-night stay in our nation's capital, tickets for the presidential inauguration, and much more. Don't miss this historic opportunity to celebrate the greatness, the history, the excitement of a presidential inauguration. To enter, you see the link in the show notes for this episode, or go to SalemPodcastNetwork.com/Trump. Guys, I've said this, that this is the marquee event on anyone's social calendar for the year, really for the decade for most people. And you get a chance to go. I don't see why you wouldn't give it a shot. Salem Podcast Network/Trump. All you got to do, and you'll get your name on the list. And let's see if you can win. I hope you do. All right, New Orleans had top-of-the-line barriers to prevent car attacks, but didn't use them on New Year's Eve. This is a report from NBC. So I'd like to tell Tom Wilson that our problem is not that we're too angry and divided. It's that, for whatever reason, our incompetent leadership did not put up these bollards, 700-pound steel Archer barriers that could have been used to stop this mass murder, because our leaders are not focused. They don't have their eye on the ball. ESPN skipped a moment of silence for the terror attack victims during the Sugar Bowl. Nice. ESPN, part of ABC Disney. Are they selling it off? They're gonna split up, I think. All right. A lot of these corporations, they got to get their heads straight. There's some evidence that Facebook is improving. Mark Zuckerberg's Meta is replacing their global head of policy, Nick Clegg, who was part of the Liberal Democrats. So that is a bad group. Some of the more radical lefties in the UK, which is generally a liberal country at this point, and they're pretty far out there. And a Republican establishment guy named Joel Kaplan is going to be the head of policy there. So I'll tell you, there's a best and worst case scenario here. The best case is that Zuckerberg is finally coming around to the Bezos philosophy that you don't get to be worth, what is it, not nine figures, 12 figures? What is it, $100 billion? Like, how many is that? I didn't even do the math on that. You get 12-figure net worth, then you don't have to have anyone tell you what to do in your life. You can just do whatever you want. And you don't need to have a bunch of woke radicals tell you how to live, and you can do whatever is best for you. So I'm hoping he comes around to that, because Bezos is a guy who's not a right-wing guy. But, there were huge efforts for him to block out Amazon ads on Breitbart and stuff like that, and he never took the bait. Because I think that even though I don't think he's one of us politically, he doesn't like to be told by a bunch of woke fascists what to do. So hopefully that's what's happening with Zuckerberg. That's our best case scenario. Our worst case scenario is that he's got an establishment Republican guy, and he's just trying to be able to translate what's going on in Trump's America back to the still censorious left-wingers that run Facebook. So I'm optimistic Zuckerberg's coming around, but we'll see. But I think that's something that's kind of cool. That's a potential. If Facebook can get a little unwoke, that'd be very good for distributing our important messages that are out there. A lot of interesting economic stuff out there. Bird flu outbreak is pushing egg prices to record levels. So we've never seen egg prices at this level. This is a big topic of conversation today on our Breitbart Fight Club interview that I do on my Breitbart Confidential show, where I talk to John Carney about a lot of the economic data we've had. But egg prices just are, I think, up like 3 times. They're up in the Midwest, like about 4 times what they were at the start of the Biden administration. So we got a dozen large eggs in the Midwest, $6.07 per dozen. Wow. Previous record of $5.46 was December 2022. So we've hit the highest levels in certain areas of the country. I am a egg elitist. I will tell you guys this, that I get the best eggs I can get, because I think they're relatively cheap for what you get. I'll be eating some eggs after the show. I'll be eating 2 eggs. So that will cost me roughly $1.80 for the 2 eggs. So, but I get the best ones because I don't want the chickens tortured. I don't like it. I don't like the idea of tortured chickens in a cage. And I like them fresh. I like that orange yolk. It tastes better. But I will say that it is a good indicator of where the economy's at, because staple food, and it used to be thought of as a dozen eggs was $1.50, and now you get a fancy egg and you're pushing over $10 a dozen now. And apparently $6.07 for regular eggs. So, and how is Biden dealing with this stuff? Well, he's trying to foil Trump by permanently banning offshore drilling in some U.S. waters. This is fascinating and dark, what's happening. He's trying to kneecap Trump by fulfilling this campaign promise to drill more. So Trump wants to drill, and Biden wants to stop him from drilling. There's a really dark, sort of anti-American vindictive logic to this, that Biden knows that in order for Trump to succeed, he's A, got to make good in his promises, and B, he's got to get the economy roaring. And the economy is going to be stimulated by more gas production, more energy production. So if Biden can somehow make it more difficult for Trump to tap our natural resources, then this is going to deeply favor the Trump not succeeding, at least at a quick rate. So there's this law, I consulted with Carney on this, from the 1950s that says you are that the president can protect natural resources from extraction. And it's not clear on how a subsequent administration can repeal it. So Biden has found this loophole. And why he's doing this exactly now, I don't know. It feels like a vindictive thing trying to hamper Trump. But Biden can announce these protections for natural resources, which is going to block Trump from drilling offshores, and we don't know how Trump is going to undo it. He could have done this at any time. And it feels like a giveaway to some of his constituents. But at a minimum, it seems like a more sabotage for Trump. Not good. Really, really not good. Disturbing stuff. So Trump, of course, has promised to drill more. I got a exclusive quote, which was originally posted at our Breitbart Fight Club. And this is from Carolyn Levitt representing Trump, his spokesperson. Joe Biden clearly wants high gas prices to be his legacy. This is a disgraceful decision designed to exact political revenge on the American people who gave President Trump a mandate to increase drilling and lower gas prices. Rest assured, Joe Biden will fail and we will drill, baby, drill. Good. I hope he's right. But Trump needs the economy to roar back, because that's how he's going to get this administration to the next level, is when people feel confident, is when people feel like they have more money in their pockets. And the easiest way to do that is to get our natural resources out of the ground. This is going to allow for so much more to get done. Innovation is going to get done. More commerce is going to get done. More investment is going to happen. So it's not just that we in principle as conservatives don't want to be dependent on, solar and wind. We don't want to be dependent on international other countries for energy. We want to be dependent on ourselves and only ourselves, of course. That's number one. But also it's that second tier that for America to thrive, we want abundant energy. And Biden is trying to make that difficult for Trump to do. Bad guy. I've always said it. All right. Elon Musk Tesla reports a drop in annual EV deliveries, first time ever that we've seen this. This is interesting because Tesla is clearly a company you got to watch carefully, because Musk is cozying up to Trump, which is overall, I'm neutral to it. He's helped Trump immeasurably, I think, in the culture. And I think that's great. He helped Trump win. But also he's got all these businesses, and Tesla is very dependent on China. So he needs a lot of his materials from China, got production in China, and he would like to dominate the Chinese market for EVs. But the problem is he's got to know that that's not going to happen long term, because he's seen as an American company, Tesla is, and Xi Jinping wants Chinese cars to dominate the world. And so of course they're going to dominate China. And we have a precedent for this. I wrote about it in Breaking Biden, which is that Xi Jinping welcomed in Hollywood to release movies in China. And then as China's acumen at making movies themselves improved, then American movies were harder to get placed into Chinese theaters. So where they've basically all been eliminated for the most part. Only a handful a year of American movies get released in China now, because Xi Jinping just wanted to take advantage of our IP, our intellectual property, want to take advantage of our skills, our knowledge, our know-how, teach Chinese how to make movies, which we did because we're dumb in that way. And then he kicked us out. So that's what's going to happen with electric cars. So Musk has got to be careful of that. But now we're seeing the American market also be a little more hostile to him, because left-wingers see buying a Tesla as somewhat of an endorsement of Trump in some circles. So noteworthy, because it's a stock that could go in either direction, because Musk wants this to be a company that lasts forever, hundreds of years. So how is he going to regain that momentum? Because it's a relatively small company in the scheme of car manufacturers. It's big in the EV game, but relative to other manufacturers, it's relatively small. So considering that, it needs to be able to show growth every year. And we know that they're going to get cut off in China. But if he's alienating the climate change liberals, which he is, and we're seeing how the resale value of electric cars is so bad, is he going to be able to maintain growth? And that's what we're going to want to track, because if he feels like he has to make maneuvers, are those going to be in line with Trump's agenda and what our hopes are for this country? The other thing is that he doesn't make hybrids. And it feels like people who like EVs are increasingly going back to hybrids because they want to have the option to have gas. They don't want to have to charge their cars every second. So that's it. Biden's blocked the U.S. steel takeover by Japan's Nippon Steel, citing national security. That's a good thing. Biden just getting credit for something Trump would have done. Biden would have allowed for an iconic company like U.S. Steel to take over, to have a Japanese company take it over. Likewise, any iconic Japanese company wouldn't have allowed us to take it over. Carney's example is Toyota. Like, you couldn't picture America just taking it over and letting Japan allow for that. So noteworthy. So that's a good thing from Biden. But again, it's kind of the point's moot because Trump would have done the same thing. A U.S. Surgeon General wants cancer risk warnings on alcoholic beverages. I'm interested in this. Vivek Murthy wants cancer warnings on alcohol. Do we think that works? Do we think that gets through to people is my question. Because is there anyone who doesn't know that alcohol can cause cancer if abused? This is where I feel like when we've got a government that is setting their own priorities, and they just seem to be out of touch with where our priorities need to be. We're all overeating is the main thing, and we're not moving around enough. We have a sedentary lifestyle, and we're eating way too many calories. So the word's out. I'm like, I like to have a pop every once in a while. I know it's bad for you. Is there anyone who actually thinks it's good for you at this point? I don't think anyone does. I think we all know it's a treat. The problem is that a lot of things that we don't talk about as a treat are treats. And that's really overindulgence and overeating. So I just don't, this is the whole thing with MAHA, making America healthy again. The government stepping in and putting in a warning about something you already know. It just reminds you of when you drive around LA, you see all these signs over the freeways that say click it or ticket. So yes, we understand seatbelts are a good thing overall. So, and our cars beep if you don't click in your seatbelt. So why do you have a sign that says click it or ticket? It's like, we all get it. We know. There's not one person who's driving down the 405 freeway in a given day who isn't aware that if you don't click in your seatbelt, you could get a ticket and you could be unsafe. Some people still don't want to use their seatbelt, but that's their call, right? So that's what I'm wondering is why aren't there warnings on stop overeating somehow? That's the move. Kind of frustrating, to be honest with you. All right, report, China waging a full-on assault on Christians with high-tech surveillance state. Francis Martell of Breitbart News does an incredible job for us tracking the really sort of global persecution of Christians, which is an underreported story. And the CCP is, quote, intent on rooting out every pocket of independent religious thought and persecutes Christians by shutting down house churches, stripping children from Christian families, and monitoring every detail of Christian citizens' lives, according to the International Christian Concern, the ICC, in a report that they put out yesterday as we're recording this. Global Christian advocacy organizations have helped the persecuted Christians, and they publish this annual Global Persecution Index that we report on Breitbart News, highlighting the most dangerous portions of the world to be a Christian. And China's persecution has greatly expanded. We're also looking at countries like North Korea and Nicaragua as bad places to be a Christian right now. A lot of places all over the world. And again, an underreported story because it's one of these things where you don't necessarily see certain groups. We miscast people as victims. And we miscast people as aggressors. The same way young white males are getting attacked for this radical Islamic terror that we saw. So we see some persecution of, I'm not saying there isn't some racism towards Muslims somewhere on earth, but there's a rising tide of Christian persecution and it's not discussed. All right, fun one to round out the news updates for today. California surfer rides a potential world record 108-foot wave. There's a 23-year-old just south of San Francisco, near Half Moon Bay. If any of you have been there, unbelievable part of the world. Alessandro Alo Slaber at Mavericks, famous surf spot, world famous in California. You can see the video. And I highlight this. I want Vivi to see it. I want Vivek Ramaswamy to see this. I want him to see it. We're not a mediocre era, Vivek. We got the biggest and bestest surfers. 108 feet. This wave is so intimidating. I mean, this would be instant death for most people. I would love to just see those fear sensors in this guy's brain if they were fired up when the great Alo surfing Mavericks, 108-foot world record. I always thought the biggest waves were in Portugal, but apparently not. California. California's got everything. I'm a California maximalist. That's a Cernovich's quote. All right. Aloha at alexmarlow.com if you want to be a part of the show. Good to do these news roundups. Very newsy day. So I promised I would give some New Year's resolutions. If any of you have cool New Year's resolutions, then email me and I'll try to read some on the show. You've written some beautiful emails. I'll hold back on those because I told you I'd give some New Year's resolutions. Some of these are going to be dead serious. Some of these will be half jokey. The dead serious one is we're going to make this show great. That is the number one New Year's resolution for me. And it is, I preach about family. I preach about mental health and well-being, spiritual life. But I got to say, my top focus for this year is make the Alex Marlow Show a huge show. And so we're going to do what's necessary to do that. We're going to work 24/7, trying to make this the most thoughtful, most informative, most entertaining news show on the planet. And that's why I had a dream that the show was just thriving. And I thought it was a good sign. I never dreamed the show was flopping around. That it was getting stronger, bigger, beefier. Other career goals are going to have a book come out this year. So we're going to make that book great. And then we're going to try to make it a hit. So that's big. So first of all, though, when you do a book is you got to complete it. It's the most painful thing that I do in my work. I've dialed it in. This will be my 17th year at Breitbart. So I started 17 years ago in January. So it was 2008. January 2008 was when I started at Breitbart. So we're January 2025 now. And the hardest thing I do is write the books. And you think of it as just sort of a monster term paper that is just much longer than any other term paper you ever would have imagined. And you get to pick it on topics that you know, but it's an arduous process. So we're going to get that done and we're going to make it great. And we're going to sell a boatload of it. Thanks to all of you in the audience. So that's big. Other things that's going on, spiritual for me. I've got to figure out this thing we've been talking about on the show, and I've got a lot of email on this, how I'm going to square my gigantic family and the fact that the Catholic Mass is hostile towards big families. It is hostile. Any of you Catholics in the audience with power, I know some of you are out there, I'm going to make this a crusade. I'm going to evangelize on this issue until we get something fixed. But it needs to be the standard where there needs to be a place where the kids, so the kids can participate in the Mass without distracting everyone. Because I should not be having to Zoom Mass or disturb everyone or take the kids in, have to fight through it and have it not go well. So that's big. So I'm working on this and I got to work around it on a personal level. But also, I think I got to keep lobbying people to try to create meaningful change in this country and in the church in general. All right, health. I came to this. You always got to have a health New Year's resolution. Everyone does. And a lot of people, I think, pick the wrong stuff. Like, they want to do a dry January or something, which is just have a moderate January. And I want to walk 10 million steps. You don't have to walk 10 million steps. These are the goals. And I don't mean to moralize and preach. It's eat less, don't miss workouts. Eat less, don't miss workouts. It's going to work for everyone. It's a guarantee. It also will help mood. It'll help mental health. It'll just, everything about your life will be better if you just do those things. And those will be my goals too. And they get harder. It's seasonal for me. So like when I'm in heavy research mode, launching a big project mode, it is harder for me to not miss the workouts. You can always eat less. You don't have to overindulge. But that's big for me. So I'm in a mode right now. I'm working 24/7. So you can't lose sight of it's good for your mood, good for your longevity. But that's it. Let's see, other goals that I've got. Do I have travel goals? This came up. No, I don't have travel goals. I guess my travel goal is to take some trips with the boys. So I did have a goal for last year that I was going to take Master Marlow on 2 solo trips and Master Marlow Jr. on 1 solo trip, and I failed. I took Master Marlow on 1, and that's it. So I gotta up that. I will make that at least 1 each for the year. But at least 1, I'll do 1 with Master Marlow, 1 with Master Marlow Jr., and 1 with just the 2 of them. I think that'll be good because they got 4. Master Marlow is a smart, sensitive kid in particular, and he understands that daddy and mommy are going to split time with the babies, and the babies are going to end up dominating. And that's not fair. And I want to make him feel good about that. That's my travel ambition. I don't need to go to Kuala Lumpur this year. I don't need to go climb Machu Picchu. We'll save that for a different year. Just mostly using it as family time. That's a goal there. Okay, less social media, more books. That's on my list. Always good. I have to say that when I'm in heavy work mode, my main vice is the leisure podcasts about golf, podcasts about movies. And you got to throw in the audiobook, do that. And when you're winding down, not winding down on social media, winding down with an actual book. I'm always at my best when I'm getting through books. There have been years in recent years where I would get through 30 books a year. I don't know if I cracked double digits last year, and that's embarrassing. It's like, I can't, for me to be my best on the show, for me to be my best, I'm going to have to read a lot. And I know I'll be off to a slow start because I'm always going to read fewer books on years I'm writing books. So I got to work on that, and I got to have some accountability here and set a goal. But I used to be like an every other week I get through a book, and it has not been like that for the last year or two. And I got to get focused in that regard. Let's see. Style, no Q-zips the whole year. Do not put on a Q-zip. That's the goal for the year. And I'll let you know if I break that one. Getting my hair in order. I said that. We're getting the hair going. I think I'm off to a good start. One of you told me just to put on a hat. You emailed, just put on a hat. No, it's not going to work. I got to get the hair dialed. Presentation matters. Appearance matters. I set out some cooking goals. This is a big one. I'm going to use a vanilla bean. I'm going to use a vanilla bean this year. I've never used one. Have you ever used an actual vanilla bean? They're super expensive. They're like $10 each. And then you got to split it down the middle, and then you scrape out the guts of it, and you use that in something. And I don't know what I'm going to use it for. If you know how to make whipped cream, for example, it's so good on its own that I've never felt like I need to put a $10 vanilla bean in this, but maybe I do. Maybe I'm missing out. So I got a stand mixer. Wonderful gift from my sister Molly, my dad Robert, from Christmas 2023, still in my garage. I'm going to whip out the stand mixer, and I'm going to use it for something. So I have achieved one of my career goals that I have in life, which is that I am the proprietor of a pizza oven. It came with the house, but I purchased a house with a pizza oven. This is where, when I was a much younger man, early 20s, I had said to Mrs. Dr. Marlow that one of the signs I know I'll have made it is if I own a pizza oven, because I felt like that is the ultimate luxury flex. And I have one, and guess how many times I used it last year? 0. And it's not that hard, and it's so enjoyable. But the combination of, you kind of got to do the dough, which is sort of an all-day process. Not that hard to do, but it takes a while. And it's always going to be a calorie bonanza, which is not good for you. So, and it takes a fair bit of focus because it's a very quick cook, the pizza. So I got to get the stand mixer out, get the dough going, and I've got to I got to use the pizza oven and the stand mixer. That's big. So we think that's, what of these is my most important resolution? I'm still going to go back to probably the spiritual and career stuff. But I think that's it. That's a good list. I've got some others. I guess I was talking to Ken Klukowski yesterday about maybe trying to figure out what's the maximum number of oysters I could eat. I asked Ken what's the most, because Ken he's a foodie. Ken Klukowski is our senior legal editor at Breitbart. And anyone who knows Ken he is living his best life. He's deeply in tune with the populist movement. But I decided to ask him what he thought his record for oysters was. And he just told me flat out he could eat at least 50. And then I asked him, then do you regret feeling whatever that sensation would be, that there are 50 oysters inside of your body at that moment? And he said he hadn't really thought of it that way. And I said, no kidding. And I said, what's the most you've ever done? He said he thinks he's pushed close to 50 because he said there was a quick moment in his life where he was successful enough, where he was showing up at parties where there would be gratis oysters, but young enough where he thought the goal was to consume as many as humanly possible to get the value. And he had to mature out of that. And I thought that we've all been there in some way or another. It's probably most people with the booze, though. Oh, we got the open bar. And they say, well, yeah, but you shouldn't just have a million, bottom shelf drinks just because they're free. That's not good. It's not healthy. So yeah, but the 50 oysters, should I see if I can eat 50 oysters this year? No, I will not. That will not be one of my New Year's resolutions. All right, we're in silly mode. That means it's time to go. aloha@alexmarlow.com if you want to be a part of the show. Send me your feedback. Send me your New Year's resolutions. We'll talk more about this next week. Any thoughts on Speaker Johnson? High expectations, low expectations, all of that. I want to get your thoughts. It is big. January the 6th is Monday. January the 6th show. Are we going to get an insurrection? We are going to get an insurrection somehow, right? They've been promising for years that they're going to stop Donald Trump by any means necessary, right? This has been the whole MO of the resistance. He's an illegitimate president. So they got to try to block him, right? And if not, they're going to disappoint their constituents. So how are the Democrats going to deal with January the 6th? We're going to have to find out on Monday. That's today's show. Thank you to producer Misty. Thank you to all of you for telling 10,000 friends and family members about the Alex Marlow Show. Can't thank you enough. And we'll reconvene next week. Thanks for watching or listening.